come. Hi everybody, welcome to our home safari for today. My name's Lisa and we're down here with our North American river otters down in Wolf Woods, and we've given them a bunch of ice treats to play with right now. We made a bunch of balls and things for them to mess with, but they're more curious about people at the moment. People have been asking me what the animals think with the zoo closed, and a lot of our animals didn't seem to really notice a whole lot, but we can tell the otters miss seeing people, so they're all taken with us standing here in front of them right now. We've got Wesley is on the right, you're right, and then Sugar's the one on, there's Wesley going in the pool. Sugar's our female and she's 6 years old, and Wesley is a 7-year-old male. They've been together here at the zoo for 3 years, and as you can see, and you probably know if you come to the zoo a lot, these guys are really playful. They like to engage with people when they're watching them through the windows, and they like to play with their toys or anything interesting and novel. They'll mess with it for forever. They make it really challenging for us sometimes because they're very smart and they're very curious, so they're always keeping us on our toes, giving them new things to do and trying to keep them from doing things that we don't want them to do. We've got Tanya, one of our other keepers, up top. She's going to throw some snacks in the pool too for them as soon as she can get their attention. And here at the zoo, they eat a mix of, they get various things in their diet. They get some ground meat and they get cat chow. Right now they're getting clams. That's not a daily thing. That's a special treat that we're giving them for today. So you can watch them try to get those clams and mess with them and get them open and get the meat out of the inside. We also give them fish here, and that's another thing they'll eat out in the wild. They tend to eat fish and crayfish and mussels and insects. Sometimes they'll dig up worms and eat them. These river otters are native to our area here in Ohio. They're native to a lot of North America. They used to be really common here, and then back in the 1800s they were hunted almost to extinction in this area because they've got really, really warm fur, and the fur trappers trapped them almost to extinction, like I said. And people, that's how they can stay warm in the water when they're swimming. You might come in the winter sometimes and it'll be 15 degrees and these guys will be in the pool. That's because they've got a really thick, warm coat. It's up to 160,000 hairs per square inch. And they have an undercoat which traps air against their skin, and that helps keep them warm as well. If y'all have any questions, you can send those in to us and we'll answer them as we're going along. We have a question from Alex. Alex wants to know what their favorite food is. Sugar's favorite food is probably hard-boiled eggs, and we'll give her one of those in a little bit. And Wesley, he doesn't really care. He'll eat everything pretty much any time of the year. They do like it when they get live fish. That's a special treat. Unfortunately, we don't have any of those for today. We got a question from Audrey. She wants to know if they are endangered. They're considered threatened, but they're not endangered here in this area anymore. Like I said, it was or maybe I didn't mention it yet, I don't think. They were hunted almost to extinction, but the Ohio Department of Natural Resources brought a lot of otters up from the south and reintroduced them, and they've been protecting the wetlands and their habitat, and they've actually made a really good comeback. So you might see these guys along different rivers and streams and waterways, just even here in the Cincinnati area. Ellie wants to know, can they breathe underwater? They can't breathe underwater, but they can hold their breath for up to 8 minutes, and they can dive as deep as 60 feet. So it might seem like they can breathe underwater because they're underneath for so long. Kyle asks, do they use tools? They don't use tools, but Sugar will use her head sort of as a tool. Like I mentioned, they're both kind of into things a lot and messing around, and we've watched her move some really big heavy items that we didn't think she should be able to move, and she'll just get her head underneath them and use her head and her body and just push and shove and just push the thing usually into the pool from wherever it is, and then we have to somehow get it out of there. So they keep things busy for us. Nathan wants to know how old they can get. In the wild, they'll live 10 to 13 years, but in a zoo, they could live up to 25 years. And Emily is asking, do they slide on their belly? They do that in the snow. If we get a good snowfall, they'll kind of jump in the pool and they'll swim, and then they'll get out and just sort of scoot along on the snow on their belly. Wesley is asking, are there different kinds of otters? There are a number of different kinds of otters. These are the only ones that are here in this area, but there are a number of different, there are the giant sea otters. 13 different. Tanya's telling me 13 different species of otter in the world. Yes. She's my cheat sheet. Henry wants to know, how many babies do they have? They can have as many as 6 babies. Usually 2 or 3 is the most common. Maya wants to know, do they like toys? These guys love toys. We'll give them all different sort of toys. You can see some things down in the bottom of the pool when Michelle shows you again, or they've got a little raft that's floating up there right now. We'll hook their toys together in different ways for them to fool around with. Krista's asking, how much time do they spend in the water? They'll spend several hours a day in the water. We never really watch them to time it, but if you come by the zoo, usually early in the morning is when they're most active, and then they'll tend to sleep somewhat during the middle of the day, and then later in the afternoon they'll get back up, and if they're up, then they're usually in the pool. So they spend quite a lot of time in the water. Will wants to know, who is their favorite keeper?
It's a favorite question.
To be honest, their favorite keeper doesn't work with them anymore. We had a temporary keeper in our department for about 5 years. Her name is Erin, and she has a really good relationship with both of our otters. She recently got hired on full-time, and she works in the Night Hunters area now, so you might see her in one of the Night Hunters Facebook Lives coming up. We also have a question, can babies swim? They can't swim. Their mom has to teach them how to swim, and she usually does that when they're about a month or so old, and she'll take them out one at a time. And if you go online and just Google otter baby swim lessons, you can usually come up with a good video. There's one from the Columbus Zoo of their otters being taught how to swim, and mom will literally just kind of drag them out, drag them into the water, because you know they're little and they're scared and they're not sure what's going on, and she pulls them in and helps them learn how to float, and then they learn how to swim from there, and then she'll teach them to dive. So it's a gradual process, but they learn pretty quickly, I think, and then before you know it, they're scooting around like these guys are. Matt asked, do they have good eyesight? They do have pretty good eyesight, and they also have what's called a nictitating, I can't pronounce it. They have a membrane that covers their eye, so when they're underwater, their eye is still protected, but they can see well when they're underwater. We have the question of how long can they hold their breath? They can hold their breath for up to 8 minutes. Although, as you can see, they're usually down and back up and down quite quickly, but if they need to, they can hold their breath for up to 8 minutes. We got a question about their gestation. They're a little complicated. Otters have what's called delayed implantation, so while they'll breed in the spring, the egg will fertilize, but it won't implant until later on in the fall. So the true gestation is anywhere from 260 to 360 days, but the actual gestation is more around 60 to 65 days. And somebody wants to know, how long do babies stay with the mom? And I don't know the answer to that.
I think they can be pulled away around 6 months, I think is the earliest. Like if you needed to separate for some reason. But I don't know an actual date.
Okay.
Most are going to stay long enough for a good year at least, I think.
All right, we're not 100% sure about the answer to that. We're sorry. Wesley, oh hey, you got the same name as our otter. Wesley wants to know what are their whiskers for. They'll use those whiskers to find their food out in the wild. The pool's not quite as clear as here. The water might be kind of murky, and so they can use the whiskers to feel if a fish happens to zip by, or if they're kind of feeling around down in the mud at the bottom of a stream or something, and they can find mussels and clams that way by using their whiskers. Oliver wants to know, can they live in salt water? These otters are freshwater otters, so I don't believe they would be able to do well in salt water. I don't know for a fact. There are species of otter that do live in salt water, but these guys don't. We've got the question, are they friendly to humans? Our two otters, Sugar and Wesley, are very friendly. We can't go in with them physically, but they're very curious and interested in everything, and they're really friendly with people. And if you come here to the zoo and visit the otters, you might notice that sometimes they'll follow different people along back and forth in front of the glass, or if you have something that you wave in front of the otters, they like to follow people sometimes. I'm not sure what catches their attention with certain people, but they do like to engage with everybody that they can. We've got all of our food in there for the otters. We'd like to wrap it up a little bit. We've got an activity for you all today. If you like, we would like you to make a paper bag otter puppet, and you can give them clams if you want, or you could give them a toy to play with like our otters have got, and then put those online so we can see them. You click on the link and there's a little template that you can look at so you can see how to make your otter puppet. And thanks so much for doing our home safari, and hope to see you soon here at the zoo.